for it. Hello, I'm Tam of the Tam BOTC channel, and this is the return of my Versus series. We're going to do a couple of missions. Also, apologize if there's any audio problems. My mic's garbage. I hope there's no other problems that interfere. It's raining out right now, so hopefully you can't hear the rain. I'm going to try and bring like messages to my Discord as well, so people know. This is a hard one because I'm a big fan of stealth games. We're only gonna use Metal Gear 5 in the background, by the way, for gameplay background while I stream. Maybe in the future, if I revise this or do a remake of this Versus, I will use more footage from both games and different games within the series, such as the other Metal Gears and the other Splinter Cells, or just the Splinter Cell at all. The reason is because I have to set up to my computer with the Elgato, but I wanted to do this because it was very interesting to me. I wanted to bring back the Versus series, and it was just like a really tough subject to already throw myself at. But I came with some interesting things that I thought up for this, and I will be discussing some different stuff as we go. We'll go through the usual stuff talking about the series. I won't go too in depth about, like, say, the story or the stories of these games. I will talk about things revolving around the story and such, and like the general consensus of it. Yeah, this is going to be a ridiculous one already. So when it comes, starting off, we have two brilliant minds. One of them sadly passed away a couple years back, and one of them was fired from Konami. Konami, boo, evil goddamn corporation. I'm hoping I don't get any copyrights on this. So this is Metal Gear Solid versus Splinter Cell. Tom Clancy and Hideo Kojima, both very unique minds behind their respectable series. Oh, this guy's wearing a helmet.
That's the target.
I'm just playing with my special gear as well, but when it comes to each series and the brilliant minds behind them, Splinter Cell's a lot more grounded, realistic. They base a lot of their stuff on
You gotta extract him.
real, like, people and such, where Metal Gear kind of bases its characters. Obviously, Hideo Kojima loves his movies, and there's a lot. It's a lot more sci-fi, but in the past, war, military, but not as realistic. So it's interesting, and it's got Hideo Kojima and Tom Clancy's personality are in both of them. I wouldn't say that Tom Clancy. I don't know if Tom Clancy, I don't think Tom Clancy takes a big part in Splinter Cell when it comes to certain aspects of it. That mostly is to Ubisoft, their developing teams at the time. What the hell? But there's a lot of interesting things to go over with both these series. I will say that, man, if we're going to include blunders of each series, you probably don't want to include the poorly aged original two Metal Gears, especially since the newer games especially the games try pulling in some story stuff from there. It's ironic too that the latest Splinter Cell and the latest Metal Gear replaced their actor, David Hayter and Michael Ironside, with Kiefer Sutherland and whatever the crap his name was. Let's try and do a mission around here. And both game. I'm sorry if I'm Jeff Goldbluming stuff up, because I'm a dumbass like that. I'll be doing a lot of I'll take care of that mission. Hopefully there's nobody around. But there's a lot of interesting things that go into both of these series, and the directions that they took. When it comes to Metal Gear, if you want to include stuff like Survive, which I'm sure nobody wants to include that, as well as Rising Revengeance, weird name by the way, but I probably wouldn't include those, but they are kind of blunders. I do think if you're going to include something, sadly MGS5 Ground Zeroes exists as a problem, as it was technically a $30 demo, and that's more Konami's fault, if I'm being honest, but it was dumb anyway. But I'm wasting quite a lot, I'm sorry about that. When it comes to each series, I want to go into like the game mechanics. I'll go into brief stuff about story and characters, and like what's stronger in one or in the other, their influence, and their like how innovative they are between one another. I think innovative-wise, they're both very innovative in their own unique way. Why am I getting a phone call? That's a bad time for a phone call. But yeah, both in their own unique way, I think there's a lot of interesting characters with their universes. There's so many games to go through. Like, it's ironic too that the third game in both series are known as like the best in their respective series. You got Snake Eater and Chaos Theory, and I could do a versus between those. They're very innovative, and they influence a lot of games nowadays. We don't see many stealth games now. I think the latest stuff is like those Styx games. We haven't seen a Thief game in a while since the last one. It's garbage. And should have been called Thief 4. Like, why would you just call it Thief? It's just really boring. So many games with boring names lately. They almost called Halo 5 Halo, and I'm like, isn't Halo Combat Evolved? What, is Combat Evolved part of the title? Whatever. It's just not creative titles, a lot of the games nowadays. Even God of War and Doom 2016, like, you had to clarify what year they were. Or you put a number yourself to clarify for people. But when it comes to Metal Gear, they brought a lot of interesting like survival elements. You use different outfits to blend in with your environments. Of course, proning, which is not a new thing. I know Last of Us Part 2 pretends that it's a new thing, but it's not. Metal Gear and like COD has been doing that forever now. So shut up. You're not innovative. And there's just a lot of... There's also survival elements when it comes to the food system, whether raw or cooked, in the Metal Gear franchise. Somebody left a message for me. I'll check it out after this video. Hopefully this video won't take too long. And there's a lot of interesting... You can see a lot of the survival elements and such carried over from Metal Gear into... And while there's not too much of it in the latest, like, I don't see much of that kind of stuff. There's still animals involved and such. But most of your healing are these weird sprays and such in this game. But yeah, it is... There are a lot of, like, survival elements to Metal Gear. Of course, like, if you break a bone in this Metal Gear, your character will pop his bone back in place. It kind of reminds me of what Hideo Kojima is doing with Death Stranding now. Like, if you're walking, your shoes break, and you walk on something that hurts your feet, and you rip out a toenail. Ugh, that's disgusting to me. You can see a lot of the survival elements not only in stuff like Death Stranding, but you see it in stuff like the latest Zelda or Red Dead Redemption and such. So there's definitely a lot of influence there. And Metal Gear's changed quite a bit from, like, especially its camera angles and controls. Its controls have always been really weird, and they don't age quite as well. Same with the camera angles in the original game, unless you're talking about Twin Snakes. A lot of the games have more of an anime style to them, where Splinter Cell's more realistic looking. Okay, we got some dudes here. I'm probably gonna knock them out, because I'm nice. Okay, I think I have a silencer on that. You can also see that Splinter Cell influence it. Like, Splinter Cell's gameplay is still used. Like, stuff that's similar to Splinter Cell's perspective, the third person, over-the-shoulders perspective. And while Splinter Cell's not really the inventor of it, you can still see that it influences, like, you're looking here, Metal Gear. Because Metal Gear did not have this perspective originally, or these kind of controls. This definitely feels very Splinter Cell. I do love how different levels can change up. Oh, there's guys behind me. That, like, enemies will be in different places, but you do a lot of, like, the same areas a lot for the missions. I do think one problem with 5 is the fact that when they didn't get to complete the story, they did reuse levels, just harder. And I think that's not a good way of making your level design, of trying to unlock the rest of the campaign by playing the same levels just harder. I don't think that's a very good idea. They could have completed the gameplay or the story with that. Ooh, what is that guy? They're all the target. What are you talking about? Those guys are heavily armored. Jeez. What are those guys? There's 2 guys up there. Okay, this is gonna be harder than I thought. I'm gonna have to find a way of... What? Why are there so many guys? I kinda wanna take the guy out in the tower. These guys are heavily armored, though. Look at those guys. And when it comes to Splinter Cell, there's a lot of environment stuff, whether shooting out lights. The lighting to every Splinter Cell game, even the first one, is really good and still holds up. The graphics even still look pretty great for some of the Splinter Cells. If you compare, like, Blacklist even to this game, they still, like, 2013 Blacklist still looks really good. Like, I'm surprised with that game. That game looks excellent on older hardware. Man. And you can see, like, Splinter Cell also, when Blacklist came along, and the black sheep of the family is Conviction, but a lot of people do think of it as, like, a badass simulator. I do love Conviction's Mark and Execute and such. What? We're gonna have to go for them. How's that for changing up the tactics? Let's fault in these guys. I love that you have a portal you could warp them through. But like, the combat in both games are very, very interesting. My friend was saying, I was playing Splinter Cell the other day, and my friend was saying it is kind of easy how you knock somebody out really quick and easily with, like, one move in the Splinter Cell game. I think there are certain tactics or ways, like, because they use different like CQC methods for both games, both game series. So I think that it's kind of like when you think of the Vulcan pinch in Star Trek, I guess you could say, where it's like a specific weight and strength as well as what part of the body you're hitting, that they're able to do such a thing to knock you out that quickly. I'm guessing they just know the right place to hit and the vitals and such, how to knock somebody out. So it was just an interesting thing that came up too with both games. There's obviously a lot more with this game. Like, obviously Metal Gear, you can't just like flip that guy over and he'll be knocked out. That guy was in some pretty heavy armor too. Yeah, and the Metal Gear series is more superhero kind of. Like, if you look at MGS3, you have the sorrow, the pain. You had all these guys with like super villain names, and of course the fourth wall breaking was pretty irritating back in the day when you didn't really have the right kind of stuff to look up on the internet or such, or even the internet at all at the time, to really look up some of the ridiculous nonsense that the game wanted to provide. Alright, you're going up. See ya! And you can say I tried really hard in this game. I practically platinumed this game, but I still need to do a couple of things, such as the S ranks, which is going to be a pain in the ass. Splinter Cell also, like, both games have like diverse other diverse things. You can even tell with Metal Gear, when it's raining, the sound of your footsteps aren't quite as easy for the enemy to hear. Splinter Cell really came up with that kind of stuff, where it had a noise meter and a light meter, and there's a little line that indicates how lit up you are, how noisy you are, and you use that to kind of indicate if they can hear or see you. And that kind of changed even over time to different looking things, or they try to make it cinematic like in Double Agent. I love that there's different versions of each game too, where you have a like either exclusive missions to a different platform, or the game is just like a whole new thing with a different perspective on its mechanics too, down to the mechanics, where it just completely changes. It's almost entirely new game. But it's just really interesting to think about. I'm gonna knock this idiot out. See ya. And like Blacklist had the market thing where you can stick in.
Subject on board.
Guys will be up there. Let me see if I can get to him. Where you were able to buy different equipment and weapons to better yourself. And I love being able to like move bodies and hide them too. Like, I'm just thinking now. And Metal Gear kind of did that as well. I don't know if like that's not really anything new, but they do feel like they copy each other. In Splinter Cell, like, Sam Fisher was kind of made as a way of, like, I think Ubisoft was like, we want our own Snake character, so they had, and with the mind of Michael Ironside to help them make Sam Fisher relatable, a kind of family man character, and have a motivation to his character, is really interesting. I love that they made him this relatable character. He wasn't just like a cold-hearted killer or anything, or just in it for the job. That's not what Michael Ironside wanted. And both David Hayter and Michael Ironside lend their own unique aspects to both characters. There's a lot of different personalities in general to both series. There's also somebody working outside, so if you hear loud sounds in the background. And there's just a lot to unpack with how they, like, there's also diversified lines and different cutscenes of what will happen. I still see different cutscenes that I haven't seen before in this Metal Gear alone, and it does impress me. I wish they were able to complete the story, but whatever. It's still an interesting game. Still they did a really good job with it. I love the stuff you can do in it too, such as you can Fulton a truck or something into a flying over helicopter and blow it up, or you can shoot a row of dudes and they'll all like collapse like a pile of dominoes. I always love that kind of stuff. There's great experimental stuff there. The movement has kind of changed in Splinter Cell. Even Splinter Cell has kind of changed its controls over the Conviction and such. Conviction is like, there's not a single Splinter Cell really Metal Gear game, unless you're talking about Survive, that is like bad or anything. Nope. But got shot up a little bit, got some blood on me. But I love that there's a karma system to this game as well.
You gotta extract him.
Ironic thing I'm going to talk about, because this video might not seem too consistent and kind of random with what I want to talk about. That's because not only am I live streaming it, but I'm trying to get out what I want to add to each of these, and I don't really have it in a consistent order. I'm sorry for that, but I will get to everything that I can. So don't you worry, and I do have a interesting topic to one or the other game possibly winning at the end of this. Possibly. This is once again a difficult one. If you know me, one of my favorite games for the longest time was from one or the other series. You'd have to watch my top games list to see which it was. I'm not going to say anything, that's why I don't want to add bias. But there are interesting things that I come up with from both series. There are another thing I want to talk about is the humor of both series. I was not a fan of Metal Gear's humor. Splinter Cell had dark humor, but it also was... it's kind of like how you would approach humor in a John Wick movie, I guess you could say. Okay, this is gonna be hard. We got more heavy infantry way over there. The open world to this is pretty empty and bland once again, but whatever. I do love all the stuff you can do with Mother Base. There's a lot going on there that I love, and you can have your own zoo and stuff. They did a great job with that stuff in like Peace Walker and such. I think the controls to Metal Gear are dated compared to Splinter Cell, unless we're talking about MGS5, which does kind of take this Splinter Cell approach with its gameplay. There's a few control differences, but not too many. But there are a lot of... I love that you have infinite stamina. And I do appreciate a lot of the cool unlockables you can get doing certain things in the Metal Gear games. It is really cool. I love, like, I have the infinite ammo bandana that I'm wearing right now. I'm just kind of wearing this for the fun of it. The story I'll get to the story stuff very briefly. But when it comes to the humor, Metal Gear's humor was weird. It either hit or it was something that was random, like, say they'd make a reference to Godzilla, and you're just thinking, okay, I guess Godzilla's canon in this universe. And then there's stuff like, just weird stuff, and I guess you could say, Japan, to some of it. Like, why the hell are there cow Metal Gears? Like, that was always weird to me. Like, and then you got, the the whole thing of somebody having to wet their pants in these games, and it's just like, it wasn't funny the first time, it's not going to be funny the next 20 million times you do it in every game. I know you're trying to be like, but it's nostalgic, they have to do it. It's kind of like a series that has a staple to it that you need always. No, you don't. You're not Terminator. And Snake's character is a very 80s action hero character, both in the voice. He's got very much like kind of that Boba Fett / Clint Eastwood / Snake Plissken, which he also used the identity of, and which Snake is based off of, obviously. Just the eye patch is switched around. He's more of a super soldier character, you know. But there's just a lot more 80s inspired movies. I know Hideo Kojima once again loves his 80s his movies in general. Star Wars, Blade Runner, Escape from New York, you name it. An Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. But and then the Splinter Cell series, a lot of Tom Clancy's influences are either real life people who were in the military. I know that Rainbow Six was based off of a real life person who wrote his own books and such, and had a crappy video game based on him. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into both series with the designs and such. Metal Gear obviously doesn't take itself as seriously as Splinter Cell does, but I don't think Splinter Cell is too serious either. There's still a lot of great cheeky moments in Splinter Cell. That's humor and such. And I just think Splinter Cell balances the humor, has better humor, only because some of the humor is just like dumb and doesn't make sense in Metal Gear. Like, why the hell are characters constantly wetting their pants in these games? I got it the first time, but why does it have to be a million other times? But yeah, I always found that weird. I find that the story to Metal Gear is also very convoluted and all over the place. And always trying to like one-up themselves or like connect to something else. Like literally, the snake you're looking at is not Big Boss. This is Venom Snake. So there are like no, there's not even three. There's so many Snake characters in Metal Gear. It's just like, keep up with this. And that's kind of like the consistency thing with Metal Gear, is it's not entirely good with how consistent it is. And like the big defining factor that I wanted to talk about that might lean one game over the other is I think the consistency of Splinter Cell is better, along with you have one character throughout all the games. And while you could say I like variety to my games, that's why I love there's more characters in different games. That's kind of the reason I love Silent Hill. But I do think that when you are trying to get to know a character, and there are new characters and characters we get to know things and they take risks even. There are characters that die off in Splinter Cell that you are very sad about, or things that happen to certain characters in the Splinter Cell series. Metal Gear has a lot of the same. The only like difference is Metal Gear isn't always consistent with who is the main character. Some people even get pissed off when they don't have Solid Snake as the main character back in the day. But it's interesting to think about. You get to know Sam Fisher's character. He's got some great development. He grows as a character. You don't always get that with the Metal Gear characters. You still get growth and stuff, but it's not as consistent with who the characters you're going to be is. You're going to be Solid Snake, then you're going to be Raiden, then you're Big Boss, and then you're Venom Snake or something, or you're Solid Snake again, and he's older now, because his age, he's rapidly aging. And then you find out Big Boss is not dead. He didn't kill him in the original Metal Gear. That was actually Venom Snake, and that's what Metal Gear Solid 5 was trying to do. And you get it. It gets really all over the place. And Sam Fisher's just a more relatable character too. Even in Splinter, if you take the recent Metal Gear and Splinter Cell games, even in those, Sam Fisher's character, while I think he's a whiny, emo brat, young brat in that game, Blacklist, he still grows as a character. He learns to work as a team, even though it's a lot of cop drama, cliche crap. He still learns and grows from it at the end of the game. There's still a lot to his character by the end. Even though it's not the strongest Splinter Cell or the strongest demonstration of his characteristics. With Metal Gear, you don't always get that because it's not, once again, it's not consistent with who the character is. And because of how convoluted and all over the place it is, you don't get to attach yourself to just one or two characters. You have too many characters, and then you're like, what snake is this? That's kind of what I wanted to go into with the Splinter Cell to Metal Gear games. They approach, I think another thing is Metal Gear sometimes Metal Gear will okay. Y'all have to get knocked out now. These guys are hard to stealth around, by the way, as you can tell.
Subject on board. Leave the rest to us.
But, speaking of which, Metal Gear's got these more, like, action-y moments, while Splinter Cell definitely went the route later on. There are, of course, like, action segments. And I'm not a big fan of, like, the camera angles in the first Metal Gear. Here's the thing, the camera angles to something like Silent Hill or Resident Evil worked for that genre. And I know it's trying to be movie-like. And sometimes the pacing can be all over the place, like in MGS5, some things can feel like they're in a different order. Especially thanks to the fact that they make you replay the same missions just harder, or with stealth only. But that's just that Metal Gear. And it's not as consistent with that stuff, and it doesn't entirely need to be. Well, not all the time. But it kind of needs that levity and that weight to make you connect more with the world and the characters, the world building and such. I just find that Splinter Cell does a way better job with its character development. And come on, if we're going to have a battle between Michael Ironside and David Hayter, I love both actors. I love the voices that they both lend to their characters. They become very iconic, very memorable, their characters. Sadly, Metal Gear doesn't really have too much hope of a sequel other than remakes, which we're hearing about. The only other thing is that and you know with the new Metal Gear remake, they're probably not going to have David Hayter and all that. And it's probably not going to be the camera angles of the old Metal Gear, which is still interesting to think about, but will it have the charm, personality, and charisma of the Metal Gear games? Probably not. Especially being Konami. I don't care what team they put as the developers, they're probably going to mess up somewhere. And yeah, Splinter Cell has been hinting to having a VR game. Hopefully they have a legit game. There's been so many YouTubers asking for a legit Splinter Cell. Not as many people are asking for another Metal Gear game, and I think it's because of that weight towards Sam Fisher. Sam Fisher's such a big, iconic character, and yes, iconic can be used in the right context. Thank you, Ubisoft, for doing that to Aiden Pierce's hat and all that crap. But he's just become such a big character that people have really come to know him, and very synonymous with the stealth genre because of it. And, like, his goggles alone are super memorable. There's, like, right in front of me, there's 7 books of Splinter Cell books, more story. And it's like, that's awesome. There's not as many of those for Metal Gear. I think there's, like, 2, like, big manga books or whatever. I can't remember. How do you not see me? I'm like a couple feet in front of you. Nope.
Leave the rest to us.
I think we need to bring out the big guns.
He's coming too. Roger that.
Now I remember why I brought this gun. Knocks these guys out pretty easily. There we go. I have all these safety guns because I like to have good karma and not bad.
You gotta extract him.
I love the karma system. There's a lot of different dialogue options you can get, if I haven't already said this, in depending on what you do in both series. Especially like Chaos Theory, you really notice like when you do something differently. Sam Fisher would have different dialogue. And there will be different cutscenes depending on what you do. It's mostly to do with the fourth wall breaking crap in Metal Gear. Which is fine. But back in the day it was annoying as hell to figure that stuff out. Especially the Psycho Mantis thing. But with both games, I think the consistency of the character, using the same character, and while you can argue variety really helps to bring a lot of life to the series, I do think having the same character gives a lot of life to it too. And especially one performed as well as Michael Ironside. Speaking of which, Michael Ironside's voice is cooler than David Hayter's. David Hayter's works though, because it's supposed to sound like your tough 80s guy's gruff voice. But Michael Ironside's voice, just like, it's unique. It's very interesting. It's kind of like Peter Cullen's Optimus Prime. It's just a really unique voice that will be hard to replicate on your own, because it's his own voice, but it has its own grit to it. He adds a lot to his character, and they just do he does an excellent job in focusing on the most important aspects. Why don't I have blood on me? What happened? Did it wash away literally? Okay, that's weird. But yeah, there's just a lot of interesting things around both voices. I think that Sam Fisher might be marketed a little too heavily recently, but it is cool marketing, and we're getting hope of like Michael Ironside as Sam Fisher back, as well as new Splinter Cell games. Hopefully, we're getting a Splinter Cell show, and they wanted to make a Splinter Cell movie at one point, but they never did that. But the fact that we're getting a Splinter Cell show, that's crazy. That's just crazy to me. I can't wait. Haha, Metal Gear, you're not getting a show. Metal Gear's got other things, and besides, who would want one now that Konami's the only ones in charge and we've seen them survive and ruin Metal Gear. Well, they haven't ruined Metal Gear Solid, they ruined Metal Gear, because I don't count Survive as part of the series. It's garbage. But I do think because of that consistency with the characters, that it works to the advantage of the Splinter Cell series, that you're able to connect with someone. Where in Metal Gear, they're always changing the character, and the story is just all over the goddamn place. And Splinter Cell can be scary with its story. Like, its story can feel very, like, real and grounded. Metal Gears can too, but you got that kind of more sci-fi approach to it at the same time. And the more superhero kind of approach. Like, Snake has infinite run stamina right now. That's not normal. And there's just multiple Snakes, and either David Hayter or Kiefer Sutherland voice multiple different Snakes. I also realized that Kiefer Sutherland does have a lot more lines in this game, most of them being... Oh gosh, a helicopter, are you serious? Most of them being in, like, audio logs, as well as when he's playing Ishmael or whatever at the beginning. But, man, like, the one problem I had with Metal Gear 5 was there wasn't a whole lot of character to him in this, as well as Kiefer Sutherland barely had any lines at all in this game. And that was just kind of sad to me. Let's see what we're up against over here, though. Are these dudes or are these tanks? I think they're dudes because they're positioned in a spot where, yeah, they're dudes. Oh, they don't look like they're wearing heavy armor, though. At least some of them. I used the kind of Snake Eater looking outfit that we all know and love, too. For you guys, especially. So, I think I'm going to go with the winner being Splinter Cell because of that consistency. And it's got the slight edge there. I also think both games are influential in their own ways and innovative. There's still both, like, there's still a lot of controls and schemes to both game series that are still influencing games today that I went over. Well, part of it, like, there's probably more missing. And there's just a lot that the characters, the voice actors, the development, the story lends today, too. But I think because of the consistency, the character development, how they utilize it in Splinter Cell is just handled a lot better compared to,
That's the target.
I think they're all the target. Headshots in both stealth games are just very satisfying.
Subject on board. Leave the rest to us.
I have to figure out what to do about this helicopter. Oh my gosh. Oh, there is a tank.
He's coming too.
We're gonna have to take care of that tank and the dude behind him. But yeah, there's just a lot of, I think that's what's going to have to win Splinter Cell over for me, is the consistency of the characters and such. There's a lot more I could go into. And I think I did enough. This video will drag on too long and you'll probably get bored of me just kind of crouching around, sneaking, or whatever. Even though I love having the patience to play a Metal Gear Splinter Cell game. Really works in its favor. I will hopefully revise and make this better sometime in the future, so that I have more to go on. And I would love to use more from the other games rather than just one game at a time. But there was a lot to unpack. This was still really hard for me to do. You could tell I was umming and such a lot. I had a lot to think about.
Subject on board. Leave the rest to us.
There's a lot to unpack in general with these games. I'm gonna have to get a rocket launcher or something. go. This is the one dude and the helicopter. But I hope you enjoyed this video nonetheless. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Leave your comments below, and when you do, hit the little bell for notifications. Keep up to date with the latest content and or videos. So, I hope you enjoyed once again. There was a lot to unpack with this. I know it doesn't seem like it, but both game series are legendary. Both of them have a lot to their gameplay, their style. It's a lot to unpack, and I hope I unpacked it well enough for you guys.
He's coming too. Roger that.
Let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I'm going to... I don't want to replace this weapon though, because it is pretty useful. I mean, I can replace it afterwards. Like, how am I supposed to get that helicopter out of the air otherwise? I would just have to shoot it down. Okay, let's get this rocket launcher and blow him out of the sky. The box sneaking as well, like that humor I was kind of annoyed by when I originally played a Metal Gear game. I was like, really? But I get the humor of it, I understand it, it's just weird. This helicopter is going to be interesting. That was easy. Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed. Only it looks like I have an armored unit over here. This one's closer though. Oh, it's that goddamn place. I think another thing is I like the level designs. There's a lot of memorable levels in both game franchises, but I do think Splinter Cell, a lot of people remember fondly their levels of the Splinter Cell games. Like, I hear people talk about the train level and such from Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow, or I hear people talk about the bank level from Chaos Theory. There are still some really great levels, Shadow Moses, all that kind of crap, in the Metal Gear franchise. And the same goes with Splinter Cell with Conviction and Blacklist. The levels have gotten less interesting or memorable in the later games, but I think Metal Gear, there's a lot of like, oh, it's a city, and you're walking through a generic-looking city area, or like Metal Gear Solid 5, where you see the same goddamn locations for either the same or different missions there multiple times. It kind of gets boring. I think I kind of like the level designs and layout, the more linear kind of setup. And there's still a lot to Splinter Cell because you can have alternate routes. The same with Metal Gear. Like, they both have different alternate routes to how you enter or exit a mission, or how you get... Another thing I remember from a video was somebody nitpicking about that Splinter Cell thing where you zoom in Chaos Theory. Use this little thing that you can zoom in and turn off. You can activate into, like, access a computer from a distance and, like, use that to turn off lasers or whatever. That thing, people barely even know that thing exists in the game, to be honest, as well as it's not... There's still more stuff you can do in the game. That thing isn't something that's used on everything. I don't think that's enough of a big problem that is a nitpick. I just remember seeing that in a video, I think titled, "Is Splinter Cell Chaos Theory the best Splinter Cell game?" And I'm just like, that's such a nitpicky, dumb thing to talk about, because it really does not break the game to the extent the guy was talking about it. It was really stupid. Yeah, both games have some really cool stuff to them. I love them. I think I do like Metal Gear's, like, there is a lot more technically to Metal Gear, but I think if you're going to connect more, whether it be on a personal level or just how the consistency of it, you're probably going to connect more with the Splinter Cell franchise than you are the Metal Gear franchise on that level. The characters aren't quite as relatable or, like, I wouldn't say unique or something. I don't know what I would say, to be honest, there, but, like, I do think that it's more consistent with that stuff. And they do a great job. But yeah, Metal Gear does have a lot of cool features to it, but that's mostly because the latest Metal Gear games were made later in the life cycle compared to Splinter Cell, where the last one was in 2013. But once again, there's still some really great things to Splinter Cell. And I think as a stealth series, I always look at both games as like the definitive stealth game, but I do love like they're both very iconic too in their looks, both Sam Fisher and Snake, whichever Snake. Once again, like there's several Snake characters, so it's kind of hard to distinguish the, as well as Snake is basically exactly like Snake Plissken, so I wouldn't give an entire credit to Snake's character being iconic, because he is basically just switched over eye patch on other eye version of, or he has no eye patch at all, version of Snake Plissken. And I think Hideo Kojima's always wanted Kurt Russell to voice Snake, but he could never get him to do this, so they had David Hayter. I thought I heard something about Hideo Kojima not really liking David Hayter as Snake either. They're not really like working with him. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't think so, but I just remember hearing something like that in a video talking about Metal Gear. It was a long time ago, though. That was just something I've always had in my head when I think about it. David Hayter's character is like contribution to the character. Apparently, I have rewards, but yeah, that's pretty much all I have to add. Oh, I think if there's one more thing I have to add before I end this is the music. A lot more people will remember Metal Gear's music, such as Snake Eater and such, and it is used quite a bit. But I do love Splinter Cell's music, especially Chaos Theory. That music is just it's very unique. I don't know how to describe the music. I wouldn't say it's memorable or iconic or like you're gonna sit down and listen to it all the time, but I do think it's really good, and I do think you should give the soundtrack a listen. It's just very unique. It works for that style of game. It's really good. I still think it's really good. I remember it fondly. I don't know if other people remember it as fondly. Like, you'll probably hear more about, like, I think Metal Gear's music is a little more iconic, but I think that Splinter Cell's music is a little bit more unique. It's very much like, yeah, I don't know how to describe some of Splinter Cell's music, because it's very like spy heavy. You definitely have a spy vibe to it, and it speaks stealth, that stealth vibe. Like, it speaks to you on that level. I don't know how to describe the music. It's good though. I love it. I guess it's kind of like Mission Impossible if Mission Impossible had like a kind of almost raindrop effects to it, because the music kind of sounds like it does that, like a raindrop, like rippling effect to some of the music. It's just very unique. I love it. Yeah, I don't know how to describe it. I think Metal Gear's music is more memorable, but I think Splinter Cell's is really unique and cool. So, yeah, and I think both series are great. Honestly, I think Metal Gear probably would win. I do think Metal Gear has added a lot over the years to its gameplay compared to Splinter Cell. But I think because of the consistency of Splinter Cell, and that it still does change up things and do some really cool, unique things nonetheless, that are kind of mind-blowing at times, that I do think Splinter Cell can hold its own in a battle against Metal Gear. there's a reason why Splinter Cell is such a big deal next to Metal Gear. Like, the fact that it's able to contest with Metal Gear in so many different situations. Also, if I had to add something to this, I remember the death battle between Sam Fisher and Solid Snake. I do think that battle is kind of cheap, because that's kind of like if you took an ordinary soldier and put him up against a super soldier like Master Chief. Because isn't Snake like a super soldier? He's got super enhanced abilities and such, or whatever. It's just kind of cheap, I guess. Cheap. Snake's still strong in his own terms too, but like the fact that he can run infinite stamina and all that, and he's pretty strong, durable, is pretty crazy for his character. And just the story behind the different Snake characters as well. So it's kind of like putting an ordinary man against Superman or something. Not entirely the same, of course, but it's like you understand like where I'm coming at. It's like that's the only reason you had them fight was because they have something in common in the terms of these stealth iconic characters. So yeah, this was a hard battle. This was a really hard battle to talk about. Like, it may not seem like it, but there's going to be more hard versus battles for me to do. But this was a hard battle for me to do. I'm glad I'm done talking about it, because hopefully I'll revise it, do a new video involving more usage of the other games, because I would love to do that. The only problem is copyright reasons. So, because Konami likes to copyright you or doesn't like you recording their games at all, I've had problems with that trying to stream on Twitch. I would try and stream the MGS HD edition with Metal Gear Solid 3 and 2, and it would be the same thing with Silent Hill series, and it'd just be like, nope, Konami no likey. And obviously the creators of Splinter Cell obviously love Metal Gear. They've referenced Metal Gear in their games, and Sam Fisher came up because they wanted their own, like, Snake, basically. But I do think that Michael Ironside really helps to lend a unique charm and personality to Sam Fisher's character. Yeah, I loved it. I love both series. So this was very hard. It may not seem like it, and I'm trying to be unbiased as possible. Try not to be biased, basically. So hopefully I did a good job. If there's more you can add, let me know. There's always some sort of interesting thing I can come up with for why a series would win over another. That's kind of what the shtick of my other versus videos, and I didn't think of it before until recently, but the consistency thing and the use of the same character helps to ground you in that world and helps you to connect to those characters more. There's a lot of characters still in Splinter Cell as you go, new characters and such, but it does I know it has the same characters throughout most of the series, but I do think that consistency as well as the character development helps to stabilize that and help you connect more with those characters, especially with how relatable they're made. As Sam Fisher's a family man, he's had tragedy in his life and such, he's still very relatable. Snake is kind of your typical action hero, 80s action hero movie character, which is the point to an extent, but it's not as consistent with the characters that they use, and sometimes, like I said, they even pissed off people using different main characters like Raiden and such. Once again, not bad. I love Raiden. Raiden's actually probably my favorite Metal Gear character. But other than that, still both titans of series. I can't think of a single game other than, like, something I wouldn't count as a Metal Gear game, or maybe something that's lesser in Splinter Cell. There's not a single game I think of that is bad in both series. I think that if there's something in the Metal Gear franchise that's bad, it would be the $30 demo called Ground Zeroes, and Splinter Cell Essentials. I don't like Splinter Cell Essentials. As ironic as the name is, it's not very essential. Watch Critical's Nobody's video, he made a joke about that too. But yeah, I think if I had to point out a specific like Splinter Cell or Metal Gear I didn't like, those would probably be it. And I know there's other Metal Gear and Splinter Cell games I'm not talking about. I know there's like handhelds of both. And I was very brief, and I didn't go into the story. Like, if I went into the story of both these series, it would just get crazy, too crazy. That's why I brought up that that Metal Gear was convoluted, because Splinter Cell feels more like your typical Tom Clancy. You've got this militaristic story background. You got like something like there's a terrorist threat or something. It's simple, but there's still a lot of complicated world building too around it. There's still a lot going on. It's just you can follow it a little better than Metal Gear. And Metal Gear doesn't take itself as seriously because, once again, it's got all those weird sci-fi-ish moments, the Metal Gear robots and people with superpowers and stuff. A little different, a little weirder. So you understand where it's coming from with how it approaches its world. So, and I love, once again, their mechanics, such as using like rain, like you're seeing now, to cover your footsteps and the sound, or maybe the lighting helps to blend you in, or maybe the clothing you're wearing or something. So that's really cool. Also, Sam Fisher's goggles don't actually glow. So that's just something you see as the player. It's not supposed to be something the enemies see. I think another thing I think the only other thing I would talk about is maybe the acting. I think that neither game is really Oscar worthy, but in particular, like, Metal Gear is more your typical, it's anime, everyone's over the top and ridiculous. I don't think anybody's gonna get an Oscar anytime soon, but it works for that game. Splinter Cell has its bad moments of acting, like Pandora Tomorrow. There's some hilarious lines, but it's kind of like bad The Room almost of bad lines, like the guy who says, "Let me finish my orange juice." And it's like, that's hilarious. It's such a dumb line, but it's hilarious. I love it. So I love that stuff. But like, they definitely give their all to the character, and it's really cool. Like, I love Michael Ironside's performance of Sam Fisher. It's very memorable, and there's a reason why Sam Fisher is so memorable to people. By the way, I hope Sam Fisher is in Smash Brothers. It would only make sense to have him go up against Snake, and that would be cool, because then they could tie him in with like any of the new stuff that Ubisoft's doing Splinter Cell wise, like the VR game. They can finally reveal that, as well as the TV show. I don't know if the people want Splinter Cell character in there, but it would be cool. And I love the gadgets in both games. There's some great gadgets in both series. I love, like, the guns have become so, like, memorable for me in Splinter Cell. Like, I will always remember the SC-20K or the his pistol there. And the gadgets, like the little thing that you can either shoot out a light or you can just turn it off electronically. Or like the airfoil rounds, the whole sticky shocker, sticky cam, all that kind of stuff. I love that stuff. So cool. Just some great stuff there. Great variety to the weapons and such. And of course you can see we got a great variety to like the companion system in Metal Gear. I love Diamond Dog here. He's awesome. And he helps out to mark all the enemies as well. So that's dope. So I hope you guys enjoyed once again. I'll see you guys next time. I'm glad I was able to do this. It was something I've always wanted to do. particularly Metal Gear Solid and Splinter Cell. I've always had discussions with my friends about both series. It's just sad to think that like there might not be another Metal Gear game by the mastermind Hideo Kojima, and it's just sad that we lost Tom Clancy years ago. But yeah, both series are great. Either one could win. I just thought it was interesting, some of the stuff I pointed out. I'm not trying to be biased towards one or the other. It's just, it was an interesting battle. I had fun with it. There was a lot to unpack and think about. I was, of course, stuttering and repeating myself in parts because there's so much to talk about and unpack. I know it may not seem as much, and I'm kind of going more into stuff after I've already said my goodbyes. I'm sorry about that. But it was, yeah, I think I'm still going to hold to what I said. I think because of the consistency and the character that we're able to connect with a little bit more. It does a great job. But I can see the other side of the argument too, and I was saying that as well. So, yeah, there's a lot to think about there. So I hope you, once again, like this. Bye for now.